I'm French, I live in Paris, and I can spot who is a tourist from miles away. And let me tell you, unlike what everyone is saying online, the way you dress is actually way less important than all the subtle cultural cues I'm gonna tell you about later in the video. So why do you want to blend in when you're visiting Paris? Obviously, you're a visitor and you're in a city that's both super touristy and very international, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with looking like you're not from here. But if it's too obvious that you're not a local, you might actually have a bit of a harder time in Paris. And this is what I'd personally avoid wearing in Paris to blend in a bit more. So if you're from a big city, you already know that if you look like the stereotype of the clueless tourist, you know, the one that stops right in the middle of the street to look for directions, you might attract a bit of unwanted attention from scammers or from people who just want to make a quick buck and who, you know, just see you as an easy target. And it's no different in Paris, especially near the main attraction, so I would personally avoid drawing any attention to myself. And another way to do that is to just avoid looking rich. So if you're dressed from head to toe in designer clothing, or you have a very expensive looking handbag, you might attract pickpockets, especially in the metro and around touristy areas. Obviously, in local areas, you're perfectly fine, but in general, you don't want to stand out in that way. Another thing you should be mindful of is wearing weather appropriate clothing. So we have 4 different seasons in France. It tends to get pretty cold in winter, really hot in summer, and really rainy in fall and spring. So, you know, just look at the weather app before leaving and just make sure you pack enough clothes for our weather. As a general, you just want to wear appropriate clothes for the occasion, but not overdo it. And here we're already getting into what I'm really excited to tell you, which is how to blend in culturally in Paris. So what I mean by that is that we tend to wear appropriate clothes for the occasion, but we keep it simple. So for example, if you're walking all day, you should by all means wear sneakers, but don't get into full hiking gear unless that's how you usually dress at home. Or for example, if you go to a fancier place, you can wear a bit of a nicer outfit, but there's not really a need to go out in full glam, unless that's your thing and you're ready to make a statement and have people look at you. That's for me a really big one because I see people being very stressed about what to wear in Paris and that totally overdo it. Like, this is a normal city, this is not a fashion show. Most days people just wear, you know, jeans and a t-shirt and normal things, so you should be good with whatever you wear at home. And I've talked about it in a previous video, but people in Paris dress all kinds of ways. And I feel there's a lot of wrong advice on social media. And I get a lot of comments from people telling me exactly that the videos they watched about Paris before they trip didn't really prepare them for the reality of everyday life in Paris. And I feel that's because these videos focus a bit too much on being fashionable and matching a specific aesthetic than just, you know, being yourself while still dressing and acting appropriately for the occasion. And as you can probably tell by now, I'm by no means a fashion person. And, you know, the point of this video is not to make sure you dress well. I know nothing about that, but it's to make sure you feel comfortable and you really enjoy the culture. So right now I just want to debunk some advice I've seen online and that I feel is a bit outdated. It was maybe true 20 years ago, but it is by no means true today. So the first thing I see is wearing black or darker colors. That's not exactly true. Yes, the fashion is a bit less colorful than in other countries, but of course you shouldn't wear all black when coming to Paris. Then I see a lot of people saying don't wear activewear, don't wear sneakers. That's also not true, especially among young people. Everyone is wearing activewear and sneakers, especially sneakers. Like, there was a time in France where sneakers were only for working out, but now everyone, both men and women, we all have a cute pair of sneakers that we wear for everyday city life. Activewear is maybe not as prevalent as in New York City, where, you know, you can go out from the gym and just like spend your whole day in the same exact clothes. In France, I feel a lot of people will maybe change by dinner time, but, you know, for brunch or for getting coffee, it's absolutely fine to wear activewear. Also, the other advice that I find a bit weird is not wearing backpacks. I don't know what people have against backpacks, but where else are you supposed to keep your stuff? Especially if you're traveling, you're gonna have a water bottle, maybe a book, a coat, an umbrella. So you'll need a backpack, and backpacks are absolutely fine in France. A lot of people wear them. You don't need a fancy leather bag at all times. And also a really funny one, and I don't know why, when people visit a country, they sometimes want to dress like the stereotype of the country. It is a sure way to stand out as a tourist. tourist. Like, if your idea of a good French style is the stereotypical French onion man, by all means go for it. It's not offensive at all to us, it's just a little bit funny. But just to give you my perspective, I'm often asked here on this channel about berets, and I've never seen a French person wear one unironically. And that's maybe because I grew up in the south of France, so not too far away from where berets are from. And I personally associate berets with a sweet older gentleman from the countryside and not really, fashion forward people. So the only time of my life where I've worn a beret was in a French themed costume party, and you can find a beret in every tourist shop in Paris. However, one thing that's a stereotype and that I'm wearing right now are the French stripes. And these are a pretty common things to wear. It's actually called marinière, which is a sailor's shirt. And I have so many of them. I have sweaters, I have t-shirts. Bobby, my American boyfriend, even wears them. I think they're cute and they're a cool souvenir to bring from France. And every time we wear them in the US, people love it. So it's a no to berets from me, but it's a big yes to marinière. So what most YouTube videos about this topic don't tell you is that not looking like a tourist has almost nothing to see with how you dress, but it's more about how you act and how you blend in with the culture. Just to give you an example, I have a French friend who every day dresses in full hiking gear like they're about to climb the Mont Blanc, which is the highest mountain of France, and they never get mistaken for a tourist because they know all the cultural rules that I'm about to tell you. And if you're visiting Paris, one thing that will help you understand the culture better is learning a bit of French beforehand. And if you want to learn French in a fun way, you should check today's sponsor, LingoPie. LingoPie is a really cool way to learn a language through watching TV shows and movies. And one of my favorite TV shows is 10%, which is Call My Agent in English. And you can watch this show and many others with LingoPie. And I always recommend these shows to people who are learning French, since it's such a good way to be immersed in the language and in the culture. And also watching a show is way more fun than doing grammar exercises on your own. So with LingoPie, you'll have all the language learning tools you need while watching your favorite shows. You can turn on the French subtitles and even have a translation in English at the same time. And every time you don't know a word, you can click on it and you can also add it to your flashcards so that you can practice after. You can use my link in the description below to get 55% off the annual plan. So go ahead and sign up for LingoPie today. Also, in local areas, we can tell you're not from there. It's just, the way you act. There's nothing wrong about it. And, people will either be patient with you or just confused because they don't really understand you. And that's just part of traveling to a new place. When I travel, I am also super clueless. And there's always a friendly local to teach me how to do everyday stuff like taking the metro or how to eat a specific food. And I'm forever grateful for that. I love when people help me randomly. Anyways, what I mean is I think you should wear whatever you want. I believe you should try to adapt a bit to the culture. If you try to blend in culturally and you go with the flow of French life, you'll have a much better experience. So the first big one, and I think I mentioned that in every video, but it's that important, is be polite. So say hello, thank you, goodbye. This is super, super important. In particular, saying hello, which is bonjour in French. You should say hello every time you start an interaction with a new person. So at a shop, when you ask for directions, when someone is checking your metro ticket, every interaction should start with bonjour, or if you don't remember, just say hello. This is just a way of acknowledging that, the other person is a human being too. Then my second tip for you to blend in culturally is to always be polite to people who serve you, so servers at a restaurant, shopkeepers, and so on. The service works a bit different in France, so you're a guest in their establishment, so they're the one who will tell you what to do. And also remember, they don't work for tips, so they don't need to make you like them to get a fair wage. So the mindset of the customer is always right is not the right one in France. You should always be nice, especially if you're asking for something. It's always better to present it as a favor instead of yelling at the person or getting angry. Another way we can tell you're not from here that can be a bit annoying sometimes is if you speak really loud. And this obviously depends on the language you're speaking. For example, American English tends to be very loud, Spanish as well. In France, people tend to speak a bit quieter. And I remember in the beginning of our relationship with my American boyfriend Bobby, I often told him to speak in his French voice, which is a tiny bit less loud than you would be naturally. In general, to know if you're in a loud or a quiet place, just look at the people around you and try to speak at the same volume as them. So for example, in trains, people tend to speak very low. In some restaurants, if it's a fancier, chiller place, people will speak in a lower voice, a bit like this maybe. But in some restaurants and party places, some people will get a bit louder. And this idea of just looking around and doing whatever people are doing is pretty good, because when you're traveling, you want to be adaptable. You want to adapt to the local culture. So this will get you super far, but there's a few rules to know about France and Paris in particular. So first, closing time. Closing time for a restaurant, for a shop is the time where the employees go home, the doors are closed, people are gone, the lights are out. Don't think you can just walk in 2 minutes before closing time. If people let you walk in, they are doing you a huge favor because they're working overtime for you. So just know that often places will start closing down 30 minutes before or 15 minutes before. And don't feel personally victimized by it. This is not you, it's the rule for everyone. So if people are gently telling you to get out and go home, this is normal. They're just preparing for closing. And there's also specific eating times in France. So breakfast is usually whenever you wake up. That's why we have brunch on weekends, because we tend to wake up quite late in Paris. Lunch is between 12 to 2 p.m. and then dinner starts at 7:30. If you try to eat dinner very early, for example at 6 p.m., just know that there will not be a single French person in the restaurant, because the most popular dinner reservation time is around 8 to 8:30. Also, some restaurants might even be closed. Like a lot of restaurants I like only open at 7 p.m. and if you arrive at 7 p.m, like they'll look at you like, what are you doing here? Like we're getting ready. Another good general rule that I really like to blend in more and flow more with the French culture in Paris is to just overall be aware of your surroundings. So I've told you before about how you should, just look at what people are doing and try to mimic what is happening, just follow the general vibe. But in Paris, we're in a very, very dense city, so you want to really make sure you're doing that, especially when you're walking down the streets. The sidewalks are super small. We know it's a problem. You have to zigzag between people. You also want to make sure you do that in the metro so that you don't block people who are trying to go to work. People in the metro are already having a bad time and they will let you know that you've made them unhappy. So, just walk like you know where you're going and try to not take up too much space or block anyone from doing what they want to be doing. And another very big cultural difference that might get you in trouble actually is taking pictures or videos of people. This should go without saying. Taking photos or videos of people without their consent is super rude. It's not nice. Everyone is entitled to their private life, but in France, it's also illegal. So you should not take pictures or videos of people singling them out. So you're of course allowed to take pictures and videos of people who are, walking down the street if you're taking a photo of a street, for example, but you cannot single someone out. People will tell you and people will get angry about it if you don't ask them for permission. This has happened so many times when I was filming, and I'm always careful to never show people's faces. Anyways, apart from that, there's no big no-nos in French culture, and you should just accept that you won't get everything right and you should relax, because misunderstandings are part of traveling to a new place. And I often see a lot of people being stressed about cultural misunderstandings, about what to wear, about how to act in Paris. People in Paris are just people, so we're not very different from where you live, and cultural misunderstandings are gonna happen anyways. Don't worry too much about it. Focus on enjoying the city while keeping an open mind and being open to new experiences. And if you want to know more about Paris and the French culture, I think you should watch one of those videos. I'll see you there.